He once looked me straight in the eyes and said, "You're the best thing that's ever happened to me." But behind my back, he bragged to his friends about how he fooled some naive girl who trusts like a textbook. Sounds painful, right? But wait till you find out. The real naive one was him, not me. Want to know how a guy who thought he was in control ended up destroying himself with his own hands? Trust me, this is the kind of story you won't want to take your headphones off for. I'm Rachel, 29, an accountant who works from home. My life is quiet, almost invisible to the outside world. No boyfriend, no parties, no flashy social media. Just work, a few close friends, and small routines that keep me safe in my own little world. Until my birthday, when my best friend sent me a bouquet from an expensive flower shop. The delivery guy? Derek. He stood at my door wearing a faded jacket, hair slightly messy, with an easy, unforced smile. "Rachel, right? Delivery from June's Floral," he said, his voice deep and warm. But what caught my attention wasn't his appearance. It was his eyes. Not overly confident, but not shy either. The kind of look that says he's been through things, and he knows exactly where he stands. After that day, I ran into him a few more times. Coincidence? Or maybe not. He said he made a lot of deliveries around my neighborhood. Each time we crossed paths, he remembered something new. The olive hoodie I wore last time, that I preferred tulips over roses, that I didn't drink soda. Little details no one usually notices, but he did. It didn't feel like some cheap flirting trick, more like genuine attention that catches you off guard. One day, he started talking a bit more. Asked what I did for a living, if I went out much. When I told him I was an accountant working from home, he nodded. I figured, there's something about you, steady. I wasn't sure if it was a compliment or just an observation, but I found myself smiling. For real. A few days later, he texted me. I was a bit surprised. Turns out, he had quietly glanced at my number on the invoice the day he delivered the flowers. "Just wanted to ask you to dinner, if that's not too weird," he wrote. I turned him down, politely, but he didn't disappear. A week later, another message. "I get the feeling you have good taste in food. If you change your mind, give me a shot." His words were soft, never pushy. Just an open door, like I had all the choice in the world with zero pressure. I thought about it for a while, and in the end, I said yes. That first dinner, it wasn't romantic like in the movies, but it was enough to pull me into the sweetest trap I've ever known. Derek shared a lot. He grew up in a broken family. His parents divorced, and for a few months he lived in an old truck. He used to do heavy lifting jobs, got evicted once for missing rent. But he didn't tell it like someone complaining, more like someone who'd been through it all and just wanted a normal life now. "I used to think everyone was fake," he said, holding a glass of water. But then I realized, no one can be real if that's how you see the world. I went quiet. When I asked about work, he said he was delivering for a high-end service, but it was just a stepping stone. He liked the flexibility, liked watching people, said talking to strangers made him feel like he was still connected to the world. Every time I saw him, he made me rethink who I was. Me, the guarded one, the private one, the one who thought she had it all figured out, turned out to be surprisingly easy to pull into that carefully crafted gentleness. He didn't rush to kiss me, didn't grab my hand. Just held eye contact a second too long, brushed my elbow lightly when we crossed the street. Everything was just enough to make me feel like I was starting to trust. One time, he brought me a box of cookies, said they were from a sweet neighbor down the block. I joked, "Are you always this sweet to everyone?" Derek laughed, looked at me for a long moment, then said, "No, just with the one who makes me feel like I can be real." I looked at him and realized I was stepping into something I couldn't walk away from. What I didn't know then was, the sweetest moments are sometimes just the opening act of a very carefully written play. "You said being with me made you feel real for the first time. But I don't know how many times you've said that to other girls." That's when I first started to feel it, that vague sense that something wasn't right. But by then, I was already too slow to see it clearly. I used to think real connection began with sharing your space. But maybe, that's exactly where I started losing my peace. About 3 months after we officially started dating, Derek began complaining about a sudden rent hike. "Looks like I might have to crash at my dad's for a few weeks," he said. sounding reluctant. I was used to how much he tried to seem independent, so when I offered to let him stay with me for a bit, he pretended to hesitate before accepting. "Just a few weeks, I promise," he said, gently squeezing my hand like he was genuinely grateful. But a few weeks turned into a few months. There was always some reason: waiting for his paycheck, wrapping up his old lease, or "I'm just really enjoying it here, don't want to leave yet." His stuff slowly took over the apartment: sneakers, jackets, phone chargers scattered everywhere. But not once did he bring up splitting utilities or helping with any living expenses. At first, he was still trying. Sometimes he cooked, helped with dishes, took out the trash. But that slowly faded. He always had an excuse. "I'm exhausted, been running deliveries all day," or "had the worst client today, my head's about to explode." As if working 10 hours a day in front of a screen was some kind of vacation. What wore me down the most wasn't just him, it was his friends. They started showing up all the time, unannounced, drinking, talking loud, smoking on the balcony. Not one of them ever asked the simplest question: "Are we bothering you?" One time, I caught one of them rummaging through the fridge, taking the last soda I'd been saving. He shrugged when he saw me watching. "Derek said to make ourselves at home." I started to feel suffocated in my own apartment, that creeping sense of violation, not loud, not obvious, but constant, like someone was quietly dismantling pieces of my privacy, one by one. But the worst hadn't happened yet. One night, I woke up in the middle of the night, thirsty. As I walked toward the kitchen, I heard Derek's voice. He was on the phone, facing away from the door. I was about to say something when his words came through, crystal clear. "Thought she was clever. Turns out she's just as easy to fool as every other sweet one." I froze. His voice wasn't angry or teasing. It was the voice of someone smug, someone satisfied with a plan that had worked. I backed into the hallway, hand gripping the doorframe. My heart didn't race like in the movies. It just clenched, cold and hollow. I don't remember what else he said. I only remember that when he came back to bed, I pretended to be asleep, like I'd never left the room. From that night on, I changed. Not in an explosive way. No demands, no confrontations, just quiet observation. Everything he said, the way he used his phone, the times he vanished for hours without a word, I logged it all like I was investigating my own life. The strange thing was, he didn't seem to notice a thing. If anything, his control kept tightening. "Who were you calling today? Where did you go without telling me? Why'd you get home so late last night?" At first, they sounded casual, then they became routine. I started to feel like I wasn't a girlfriend anymore, just a pawn in a game I didn't even know I was playing. And then one evening, while looking for my bank card, I found my wallet in the kitchen drawer. A place I had never, ever put it. There was no way I could have made a mistake. I always kept it in the laptop bag pocket. It was a fixed habit. My heart didn't race. It chilled. Not because anything was missing, but because someone had touched what wasn't theirs, and they hadn't even bothered to ask. I closed the drawer. A line I'd read somewhere echoed in my head. "When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time." Derek had already shown me. The problem was, I hadn't been clear-headed enough to see it. But now, I was starting to open my eyes. I stood there staring at that wallet in the kitchen drawer for a long time. Not because of what was inside, but because it was proof that the boundaries had been crossed. Blatantly. Some people walk into your life with promises and drain you with silence. I knew then I had to change how I played this. Not to hold on, but to finally see him for who he really was. I started taking notes, quietly, consistently, in detail. Every household expense, electricity, water, Wi-Fi, gas, every grocery item, every roll of toilet paper. Even the light bulbs I replaced, the kitchen fan I had fixed, the new cookware I bought after someone forgot how to wash the old set properly. Derek didn't contribute a single cent. He didn't ask. He didn't offer. And of course, he never once said thank you. I didn't complain. I just documented. Every line I wrote was a slice of clarity, the kind I never thought I'd need in love. One Tuesday afternoon, I wrapped up a meeting earlier than expected and came home. The door was slightly ajar, no one in the living room, but when I stepped into the bedroom, there was Derek, hunched over the nightstand drawer, the one where I kept my wallet. His hand was rummaging through it like he was searching for something specific. I froze for a few seconds. Then I cleared my throat softly. He jolted, turned around, and his face went pale in an instant. "What are you looking for?" I asked. My voice was calm, so calm it scared even me. He looked at me, then forced a weak smile. Gum. The mint kind. I thought you kept some in there." I didn't respond. I didn't smile back. I just stood there, watching him, like I was memorizing a scene I'd need to recall in perfect detail later. That night, I went online and ordered a mini camera disguised as a power bank. I picked the installation spots carefully. One in the living room, one near the cabinet where I kept important documents and valuables. I didn't tell anyone, and of course, I didn't say a word to Derek. The first week, nothing seemed too unusual. But on the 10th day, I reviewed the footage and saw Derek opening the small safe where I kept a few keepsakes from my mom. He took a silver keychain engraved with my name. It was the only thing I had left from our last trip together before she passed. I searched the whole apartment. It was nowhere. Then 2 days later, while scrolling Instagram looking for a recipe, I saw it. Dangling from the strap of Derek's best friend's bag, the caption read, "A little gift from my brother for life. Thanks for always thinking of me." I paused the screen. It felt like someone had slapped me hard right across the face. Not because of the item itself, but because of the audacity. Because of how he built this fake image of thoughtfulness by stealing the most personal parts of my life. I kept digging. Over the next 2 weeks, I collected 3 more clips. 1, he opened my wallet while I was in the shower. 2, he flipped through my personal financial documents, photographing each page with his phone. 3, he scrolled through my phone while I was asleep, reading messages, checking emails, even opening my banking app. I didn't cry. I didn't throw things, scream, or pack his bags and kick him out like in some tired movie script. I just sat there, watching the footage, seeing my own face, quiet and expressionless, reflected back through the screen as I replayed the recordings, and I kept playing the role. The sweet, caring girlfriend. I still cooked for him, still asked if he was tired, still listened to his rants about annoying clients, still nodded every time he sighed. It's just so much pressure. But this time, every move I made had a purpose. I needed him to believe I didn't know a thing. I needed more proof. One weekend night, Derek had his friends over. Like usual, they brought beer, wings, loud music, and their crude jokes. I pretended to go to bed early, but from the bedroom I could hear everything, every laugh, every word echoing through the walls. "You've got it made, man," one of them said. "Living with a chick, no rent, free food. Bro, that's the dream." Derek laughed. "I live here for free, eat for free, do whatever I want for free. She thinks I'm really in love, but all it takes is playing the sweet guy long enough, and you can get anything you want." In that moment, I knew. I wasn't in love anymore. I was watching a performance, and the director was the man I once thought would be my safe place. But what he didn't know was that the front row audience was wide awake and ready to applaud the final act. I had everything, the proof, the timing, and a plan that didn't need yelling to make the truth impossible to ignore. All I needed was a stage, and I chose my own home to host the final scene of Derek's perfectly rehearsed performance. I threw a small party on Saturday night, called it a thank you dinner for everyone who had stood by Derek while he was finding his direction again. The reason? I said he'd just landed a management job at a major logistics company. Total fiction. But Derek didn't question a thing. When I suggested the idea, he hugged me. "You really are the only one who believes in me." Thrilled with his new starring role, he personally invited each of his friends, told me what extra dishes to make, and reminded me to get his favorite imported beer. Gotta look classy. All week, he acted like the host of the year, ordering food, arranging furniture, picking out the playlist. I just nodded, quietly followed along. The obedient audience, getting everything ready for the final act of the show. The guests had all arrived. The room buzzed with noise, laughter, clinking glasses, loud conversations. Everyone was eating, drinking, having a good time. Derek moved through the crowd like a man who had made it, shaking hands, patting backs, cracking jokes about difficult clients, laughing loudly about how those hard days are behind me now. No one noticed when I slipped into the back room, connected my laptop to the living room TV, and queued everything up. As the lights dimmed, just enough for the slideshow of memories. I spoke up. Before we wrap up tonight, I'd like to share a few special moments. Moments that happened right here in this home, with someone I once thought I could trust. The screen lit up. The first clip played. Derek rifling through my wallet, hand deep in the cash pocket, eyes darting around nervously. Then slipping something into the pocket of his jeans. No one said a word. The background music from the speakers still played softly, but it couldn't cover the sudden silence. The kind that feels like the whole room just held its breath. Derek froze. His face shifted from confused to pale in seconds. A woman in the corner whispered, "What the hell is this?" Someone in the back muttered a curse under their breath. I clicked to the next video. There was Derek in the living room, beer in hand, talking to his group of friends. "I live here for free, eat for free, do whatever I want. She thinks I really love her. But come on, all you gotta do is act sweet enough." A few chuckles from the video. None in the room. Then the next clip rolled. Derek lounging with his friends, one arm draped over the back of a chair, casually saying, "She's basically a walking ATM that can cook." His tone couldn't have been more dismissive, like he was talking about a washing machine he borrowed for a few months. One of the women flushed red, stood up, and walked out to the balcony. Another just stared at Derek like she was seeing a stranger for the first time. Derek finally snapped. He stepped forward, voice rising, sharp with panic. "This is a violation of privacy. You filmed me in this house without asking, who the hell do you think you are?" I turned to face him, my eyes steady, calm, colder than I'd ever felt. "You've lived here for 6 months rent-free, used my things, gave away my belongings as gifts, and now you're asking me who I am." Silence. Not a single person stood up for him. The room hung still. Then Thomas, Derek's closest friend, stood up. He shook his head, let out a bitter laugh like he couldn't believe what he was hearing, then looked Derek dead in the eye. "You remember what you told me? Just give her a cheap ring and she'll stay loyal for life." "That's what you said, man. That's exactly what you said." The murmurs in the room started to swell. People shook their heads. Some stepped back from where they'd been standing near Derek. He looked around, searching for a single supportive glance, but found none. I walked over to the table, picked up an envelope, and placed it in front of him. Inside was a detailed breakdown of every single expense he'd racked up during his time living in my home. Utilities, groceries, supplies, repairs for things he broke but never admitted to. Over $8,000 in total. Every line dated, labeled, and backed by receipts. Each entry as sharp and precise as a blade. Derek didn't touch the envelope. He just stared at it. Mouth slightly open, like he was about to speak, but stopped himself. Maybe he realized it too. Any excuse now would only make him look worse. I stood tall, looked him in the eye one last time before turning away. "You said I was naive, and you're right. But being naive doesn't mean being blind, and it sure as hell doesn't mean being stupid." The room went dead quiet, only the faint clink of glasses as a few people quietly started gathering their things, ready to leave, like they wanted no part of the mess any longer. And me? For the first time in months, I felt like I was standing exactly where I was meant to be. Not next to him, but in front of him. Steady, and done being pushed. Derek moved out that very night. No real apology, no attempt to explain. He just threw a few bags of clothes together and left behind a wrecked apartment. The smell of beer still lingering in the living room, and the things he'd used like they were his. The envelope, with everything he owed me, still sat untouched on the table. Just before walking out the door, he looked at me and said quietly, "I didn't think you'd take it this far." I didn't answer. Not because I had nothing left to say, but because I'd already said enough. That night wasn't the end. It was the full stop I needed, so I could finally start again. This time, for me. A few weeks later, I heard Derek had been fired from his delivery job. An ex-coworker messaged my friend, said he was suspected of being involved in missing shipments. Several packages had disappeared from the system, and the cameras caught him sneaking into the warehouse after hours. I wasn't surprised. People who live by taking advantage always repeat the pattern, no matter where they are or who they're with. I didn't post about it. Didn't write a Reddit story. Didn't share in any Women Awakening group. I didn't need sympathy from strangers. Instead, I quietly cleaned up my life. The old apartment held too many memories. So I moved to a smaller place, fewer things, more peace. No one crashing for a while. No one digging through my wallet. No one pretending to love me just to escape their own mess. I started learning about investing. At first, it was just short videos online. Then I signed up for a personal finance course, one specifically designed for single women. I wanted to understand my money better, understand myself better, and learn how to protect both, not with tears, but with numbers and clarity. One afternoon while I was jotting down notes for my monthly budget, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. It was Derek. His voice was worn out, broken. Rachel? I know I shouldn't be calling, but I really don't have anyone. I messed up. I didn't realize what I had until it was gone. Do you think you could give me a chance to start over? I stayed quiet for a few seconds, then calmly said, I'm not the girl you once underestimated, and I hung up. No trembling hands, no rush of satisfaction, just the quiet, solid feeling of closing an old door. A door I once believed led to love, when really it was only the shadow of someone who knew how to exploit trust. I used to think I was the naive one, and maybe to Derek I was. But the more I reflect, the clearer it becomes. He was the truly naive one. He believed he could manipulate forever, lie without consequence, and that someone, anyone, would always love him no matter how little he gave in return. He was wrong. I don't feel resentment. I don't feel hate. I just feel light, because I loved with sincerity. I showed up fully, with real emotions. And that's why I have no regrets. The pain didn't define me. How I rose from it is what I've chosen to carry forward. There's a quote I came across once that stuck with me ever since. You can't unsee the red flags once you learn to recognize them. You can't pretend not to notice the warning signs once you've trained yourself to look straight at them. I've learned, and I won't close my eyes again. Now, I'm not trying to become someone else. I'm just living as me, sharper, steadier, and unapologetic for once believing in this. Never mistake kindness for weakness, especially in a woman who's been betrayed. Because once she learns how to stand, she doesn't step back. She steps forward and never looks back. There are lessons in life you can't learn from advice, only by living through them yourself, through the cuts, through the loss, through trusting the wrong people. But in the end, what I'm most grateful for isn't the betrayal itself. It's the stronger version of me I was forced to become because of it. I used to think being naive was a weakness. Now I know, being genuine in a fake world takes the most courage. And if someone sees your kindness as a chance to manipulate you, they never deserved it in the first place. Have you ever loved someone with your whole heart, only to realize they were never truly honest with you? What helped you get back up after the pain? Share it in the comments. Your story might be the light someone else needs. Just like I once did. If this story hit home for you, don't forget to subscribe to Love Stories, where we share real stories, no sugarcoating, no pity parties. Just people learning how to love themselves again after being hurt. Because sometimes being real is the most powerful revenge.